Let's see how to graph this function. This video is going to be the fast route, okay? I'm not going to explain the details, only how to draw it. Well, this is going to be the amplitude, okay? So our amplitude is going to be multiplied by 2. This means that our period is going to be divided by 2. And this means that our phase shift, it's going to be a positive one, okay? Positive pi. But just be careful, okay? Because we have to understand things separately and also interconnected. Separately, this is actually a phase shift of plus pi. It's true. But at the same time, we have all the periods, everything on the x direction being shrunk, okay? Being reduced by a factor of half. So although we have our phase shift of pi, we have also to acknowledge that everything on the x direction, it is going to be reduced by half. And that is also going to affect this, okay? So our real phase shift, it's not going to be pi, okay? Our real phase shift, it's going to be pi divided by 2. And why that? Because look, everything is being divided by 2. It's because of that, okay? That 2 in here, it is because of the green stuff, okay? But this does not exclude the fact that the shift is pi. We are shifting pi, but we are shifting pi over an axis that it is also being reduced by half. It is 2 information in here, okay? We cannot just carry this information, it's wrong, okay? We cannot just carry this information alone, it's wrong. We have to put them together. Now, for this reason, let me just write here. On the y-axis, what are we going to have? Everything is going to be multiplied by 2, okay? And on the x-axis, what's going to happen? Everything is going to be divided by 2. And when I say everything, I actually mean everything, okay? And let's put in here inclusive our phase shift of pi. And that phase shift of pi, it's going to be also reduced by half, meaning in the end this is going to be the actual phase shift and not that. This is the initial phase shift, but we have to account for everything being divided, shrink by half, okay, in the x-axis. Now let's suppose this is our sine of x. It's not very well drawn, but it's not the point in here. This is going to be 1, okay? And this is going to be minus 1. Let's put the points in here. That point is going to be 0. That point is going to be pi, and this is going to be 2 pi. Why? Because the period of sine of x, it is 2 pi. Okay? 0, this is next to 0, therefore the 2 pi. And this is going to be negative pi. What else? Something very important too that I want you to acknowledge, it is this. This and this. This is going to be very important. This is going to be pi, and this is also going to be pi. Okay? Now let's draw the other chart in here. The first thing we have to do, and the easiest thing, it is, let's go about and change the amplitude. It's going to be 2, right? So this is going to be a +2, this is going to be a -2. Now let's do something. Let's start with this point in here. This point is 0, but we have a phase shift of pi over 2. So that point, it is no longer going to be 0. It is going to be 0 plus pi over 2, meaning that it's just going to be pi over 2. Now, what about this? This is pi, okay? That length, it is pi. It is pi in here. I'm sorry. It is pi in here. But in here, 2 sine 2x minus pi. Okay? Now this equation is this one. Okay? So it is pi in here for the sine of x. In here it is not going to be pi. Why? Because everything on the x-axis, okay, everything on this axis, it's being reduced by a factor of half, okay? Everything here is going to be divided by 2. So our new length in this chart is going to be pi over 2, okay? The same here. Everything green are the data for this chart, okay? The blue data, it is for this chart, and the green data, it is for this chart. Now I'm just preparing. Okay, where are we going to start? Let's take that point. That point in here, it is going to be, okay, translated, okay, pi over 2. Now this point is going to be this one. Okay, if this is pi, let's try to make it in the same pattern here. So this is going to be around pi over 2. So that point, it is going to be this one, and we know that this is a 0. Okay, it's a 0 in here. Good. Now let's just be careful. And what about if someone tells us this? Okay, now if this is pi in here, this is going to be what? Pi plus pi over 2, meaning 3 pi over 2. Can I just add pi over 2 in here? No, I cannot do this. Okay? Why that? Why? Because if I do this, I'm only making a translation to this point, okay, which is wrong. The right thing to do is this. We have to start at this point, and now what is going to be that point? That point, it is not going to be 3 pi over 2. What is 3 pi over 2? I prefer to write it down, okay? I'm going to remove later. Because some students, they like to do this. Okay, this is pi over 2, because I just have to add pi over 2 in here. Now, this one is going to be pi, initially, plus the shift. Okay? And this is going to be 3 pi over 2. So they just put 3 pi over 2 being the next root. Okay? And then they just keep going. If this is 2 pi, so in here it is going to be 2 pi plus pi over 2. Right? Because, well, I have a shift of pi over 2. All I have to do is take those points, okay, and just add pi over 2. And this should be 5 pi over 2. Great, okay? So they are just going to do this, and then the chart is going to be like that. Okay, I just put this chart on top of this one just to show you, okay? This is wrong, okay? But I just sometimes it's also good to make things wrong so the student can understand that that is wrong. Some people just do this. This is pi over 2, okay? Then this is going to be the pi over 2. If this is pi, if I just add pi over 2, it's going to be 3 pi over 2. 2 pi plus pi over 2, it is going to be 5 pi over 2. And they just do the chart, okay? This is the amplitude 2. I have shifted everything pi over 2, okay? and this is our chart. It's wrong, okay? It's very wrong. Why is this chart wrong? It's wrong because we have only shifted pi over 2. Let's check something, okay? I'm going to prove to you that this is totally wrong. Let's take that length in here. That length in here, it is just pi, isn't it? Okay? It is just pi, this length. This length, again, it is just pi. Okay? Look, we have the same length. It's impossible. It's not right. Why? Because we said that the period, it is being shrank by half. How come our period, it is still 2 pi? Look, from here to here. This is a whole period. It is still 2 pi. It's impossible. This is wrong. And what is wrong in here? And that is what I would like to discuss in this video. It's wrong. Try to think about it. Pause for a minute. Why it's wrong? It's wrong because we forgot that that pi in here, it's not going just to be shifted pi over 2 to here. It's not. Why? Because we have to acknowledge that two things are going on. We are shifting the curve, but we are also shrinking it. It's two things happening at the same time, and this is the heart of understanding how to chart those creatures. We have to understand it is two things. We are shrinking and changing, okay, making a translation. It is two things, and that is why we cannot just take those points in here and thus start to divide by 2, okay? We could do this, but this should be 1, okay? If the shrinking factor, it is just 1. So we are allowed to do it, but not in this case. Okay, so what should we do it? So this is wrong, okay? This is wrong. How should we do it? Instead of taking that chart and only translating, we can't do this, okay? So let's take just one point, okay? The point is not going to be shrank, okay? What's going to be shrank, it is the entire curvature, okay? Everything. But the point, it is a single point. Let's take this one. That point should be here, okay? This is the first step. Now, the next step. Let's find this next root in here. What is this root? It is going to be that point plus the new length, which is pi over 2, okay? So, this point, it is going to be a pi over 2, okay? Because to this root, it is this one. Now, this next one, it is that root plus pi in here. But in here is going to be plus pi over 2. So pi over 2, the next one, it is just going to be pi. Okay? And why is that? Because, and this point, it is still going to be pi. Okay? Now, let's see the next root. Add another pi over 2. So every root, it is pi over 2, pi over 2. So it's going to be pi. The next root is going to be 3 pi over 2. Okay, and let's just put the last one. This is going to be just 2 pi. Okay, I'm just going pi over 2 into pi over 2 because in here we went from root to root. Root is where the curve meets the 0. Okay, so root to root, it is pi, and here root to root, it is going to be pi over 2. Okay. Okay, now, if this point is this one, and this point is this one, so in the middle, we are going to have another point. In here, we should have these other points. In here, we should have these other points. In here, we should have these other points, and so on. Okay, I'm not going to do everything. And okay, if this is pi over 2, in here minus pi over 2, and this is going to be what? Minus pi, and so on. Okay, this is going to be in here, this is going to be in here, and so on. Okay, now the chart is done. Let's just plot it, okay, between this point and this point. We're going to have this. Taking the root. Again. It's going to pass right in here. This is going to be the other 0, right? In here. Those are the roots, okay? Those are the roots. Another root, another root. And so on, okay? This is our chart. And now I'm going to prove to you that this chart is correct. Well, if we used to have pi in here, okay, half period pi, so half period should be what? Pi over 2. Everything here we must divide in here. So let's take we can take in here, it's simpler. Okay, this is half period, right? And this is clearly pi over 2. Okay, and we can count also this one. It's also going to be pi over 2 if we just follow. Also pi over 2, and now it makes sense, okay? And in here it starts the cycle. 1, 2, 3, no, 1, 2, 3, stop in here, okay? This is one full cycle, pi, and we used to have 2 pi, so the period in here of this function, okay, is going to be just pi, which is just half of this, because everything is divided by 2, okay? So a brief recap. Okay, if you want to just watch that video again, just start at 17 minutes and 30 seconds. We have our equation. From that we have the amplitude. It is the double. That's what we did here. We know that the period is going to be divided by 2, meaning everything is going to be divided by 2. Okay, we are going to shrink by 2 everything. You can see that the chart here is more expanded. And here is more shrink, okay? The factor is 2. You also have to acknowledge that initially our phase shift it is of pi. Initially, why initially? Because that phase shift it is going to be also suffer the influence of this division in here, okay? We are going to divide everything by 2, and therefore that phase shift it is we are shifting to the right, yes, pi, but we are also shrinking the chart by a factor of half. So that means that our real and final phase shift is going to be pi over 2. We don't have to write all these, okay? Now on the xy axis is going to be multiplied by 2, and everything in here is going to be divided by 2. Now next step, what should you do? Let's start with the 0, okay? Here at the 0. Let's start with our basic function. If this is 0, but we're going to shift pi over 2, let's shift that point to the right, and it's going to become pi over 2. So that point, it is going to be that point, okay? You see, pi over 2. Now, let's work onwards based on this point, okay? Now, we know that each half period it is pi in here, but in here is just going to be half of that. So the blue length it is pi, but the green length it's going to be pi over 2. Now to this root, to this next one, we just have to add that length, which is going to be pi over 2. But if we are at pi over 2, if we just add that length in here, we're going to read pi. Now, again, let's continue to increase pi over 2 in pi over 2, okay? This is going to be pi. Next, 3 pi over 2, always plus pi over 2, okay? Always. That's what I'm doing here. I'm just adding always plus pi over 2. Why? Because this is what it means, each part of this curve, okay? I'm always adding pi over 2, always, okay? Always adding pi over 2. Once I get the roots, I know that this is going to be the top. Why? Because I know that when I start in here, the curve starts to ascend, okay? But pay attention, if I had a minus in here, it would just flip the chart, okay? But since it's positive, we are going to start to ascend, so this is going to be plus 2, minus 2, and so on, okay? That's it.